Something that's been trending this week is how sunlight in the morning can actually be good for your health. Several studies back that up. Matthew Walker joins us now. He's a neuroscience and psychology professor and the director at UC Berkeley's Center for Human Sleep Science. He's also held a masterclass on the science of better sleep. So you are clearly an expert, Matthew, aren't you, on this subject, I would say.
Well, I wouldn't quite rush to judgment on that or claim such, but I hope to be able to help a little bit.
Okay, so what makes morning light so beneficial?
Yes, so we are creatures that have rhythms, and our rhythm is called the circadian rhythm, and it's a 24-hour rhythm. And we are a diurnal species, so we're meant to be awake during the day, and we're meant to be asleep at night. And so we actually need a two-part equation to reset that circadian rhythm. What we need is light during the day, and particularly during those early morning hours. And that's why we're seeing so many health benefits associated with light exposure in the first couple of hours. But then we need to reverse engineer that trick in the evening. And we are a dark-deprived society in this modern era. And we need darkness to trigger a sleep-regulating hormone called melatonin. And so as a tip, I would say to people, try the experiment for the next week. In the last hour before bed, dim down half of the lights or even 75% of the lights in your home. You will be surprised at how sleepy that will make you feel.
So let's get back to this issue of morning light. Does it make a difference how you get it?
It can. And what I mean by that is daylight exposure in terms of natural daylight does seem to be critical. Now, when you go out in the morning, if it's sunny, certainly wear sun protection, but try to remove the shades because you want to get that daylight in to the retina, into the eye. Sitting next to a window is also great too, but making sure it's natural daylight is essential. Even on a cloudy day, it turns out that the brightness of that light on a cloudy day is far brighter than sort of strong overhead fluorescent or incandescent light. Get outside, get that benefit.
What's the impact of non-natural light before bed? And of course, we're thinking about computers, TVs, and especially phones.
So we were mentioning before this hormone called melatonin, and there was a famous study done several years ago where they had people read an iPad for 1 hour before bed with that blue light versus reading a natural book under dim light. And they found several detriments. First, what they found is that the release of that sleep-regulating hormone, melatonin, was decreased significantly, almost as though the blue light was applying the brake pedal on the release of melatonin. Secondly, it also delayed the onset of the peak of that melatonin by about 2 to 3 hours. So I'm here in California. That would almost put me on Hawaii time in terms of when I'm getting my melatonin release. The third thing, or there was actually 4 things. The third thing that was interesting was that it fragmented and disrupted their sleep, but particularly it reduced the amount of what's called rapid eye movement sleep, or dream sleep. And we know that's critical for your mental health, for your learning and memory, and also for hormone release within our body. The final thing that they found was that even when they stopped reading the iPad before bed, that poor sleep continued for several days later. So there's almost a blast radius consequence of that blue light.
Wow.
It's almost like a drug where you have to sort of, wash it out the system.
That's very surprising. So is there an optimal time to unplug?
There is, and it really depends on you, the individual. And this comes onto what's called your chronotype. Are you a morning type, evening type, or somewhere in between? By the way, you don't get to decide. It's not your choice, and it's not your fault. It's genetically hardwired. We know that there are at least 22 different genes that dictate your morningness or eveningness. So if I were to ask you a question, if you're on a desert island, nothing to wake up for, no responsibilities, what time do you think your body would naturally like to go to bed and wake up? I don't ask you what time do you think, because you're already biased by society's kind of, scathing of evening types. And when you understand that question, what time would my body like to go to bed? Let's say it's 10 p.m. and wake up around 6 a.m. or it's midnight and wake up at 8. That's the time sort of to use as your anchor, your natural biological anchor. And 1 hour before that, try to start to wind down, have a wind down routine. It's one of the best pieces of advice I can give you.
And finally, you said in a masterclass that sleep is more important than diet and exercise for your health. What does the science show?
Yeah, I don't make that statement flippantly, and I'm not trying to suggest those other two things aren't essential. They are absolutely essential, but I'll just give you an example as to why I think it's the foundation on which those two other things sit. So let's say that you're trying to manage your body weight and you're trying to diet. It turns out that if you're dieting and not getting sufficient sleep, 60% of that weight that you will lose will come from lean muscle mass and not fat. So in other words, when you are dieting but not getting enough sleep, you lose what you want to keep, which is muscle, and you keep what you want to lose, which is the fat. And so that's why sleep is just such a bedrock of all of these other things. If I were to deprive you of food for 24 hours, water for 24 hours, or exercise for 24 hours versus sleep for 24 hours, and compare the changes in your brain and your body, it's not even close. Sleep by a country mile will devastate you more quickly.
Matthew Walker, thank you for your reporting.